Welcome to Power Boat Talk, the podcast where we talk everything performance boats with your host, Joe Road.
Hello, welcome to Power Boat Talk. So today, for I think the second time that I've been doing this podcast, I have car guys. I've got Phil and Jeremy Gerber from the Roadster Shop. And if you guys aren't familiar with high-end hot rods, you'll get to know these guys, and they're the it guys right now as far as high-end hot rods and high-end hot rod parts. So, but they've got a background in some boats that we're going to talk about, and so yeah, that's what's going on, guys. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, it's our pleasure, man. Joe, I know we go way back. It's good to just spend some time hanging out. We don't see much these days. You know?
I know. You know what?
SEMA.
Yeah, and you know what? And now that I'm not in the industry, I don't know if that's going to happen. I was actually just thinking about it. I'm like, I'm kind of excited to talk to you guys just because I'm not going to get to talk to you much anymore. Although I feel like I should have said it in the intro, but you guys have a podcast now called Oil and Whiskey. And I feel like I still know what's going on because the format of your podcast is really cool. It's just you two and your, I guess what's Josh, like your general manager. The three of you guys are all about the same age. And you just sit around and BS with cool people, and it's just like, man. Well, yeah. Jeremy's just a smart ass, and everybody picks on Phil,
yeah. And I've known you for like 20 years almost. Since nothing's changed, right?
No,
but we just
awesome.
did it. You know, we've been flip flopping too. We get some boat guys on ours, and it's pretty cool. We had Randy Schism on there from MTI just recently, which was awesome, and
super talented dude.
It's fun. They're probably all listening, to our questions, being like, "What? These guys have no fucking idea what they're talking about." But it's all right. There's a little crossover there.
That was so weird because we've been trying to get together in this for a couple months probably, but I just interviewed.
Thanks for not sticking Janine on us.
All right, we'll revisit that reference in a few minutes, but. I actually just interviewed Randy's daughter, Taylor, literally like 2 weeks ago. And so that was kind of funny. So I'm waiting to interview you guys, and then I see it pops up. I didn't know you were interviewing Randy, and Randy pops up. And it was kind of cool because I listened to it, and they kind of had the same stories but different perspective. People ask me all the time, and I always try to correlate it. In fact, I just did an article for a Speedboat magazine on a 61 Shiata, which is like an old vintage flat bottom. But I found the boat at the Roadster Show. I didn't know the guy, but the boat was just, it had a bunch of, the guy liked old Indy roadsters and slingshot dragsters. So he kind of built this boat with a lot of lightning holes. It had like a midget wheel. It was really cool. It's just this really cool blend between hot rod and boat. And it seems like they're kind of the same guys, but it's like a little bit different taste, a little bit different look. And I don't know where you guys sit on that, but I'm always kind of trying to correlate them and put them together and just look at the uniqueness of the two of them.
Well, I mean, they came up like in the early days, right? You go back to like your old like 50s, 60s hot rod magazines. I feel like the two went like hand in hand. You don't see it so much anymore, but there's always like
crossover speed parts and the motors.
Yeah.
And there's always something pulling a flat bottom tunnel hole behind
right.
Nomad or something cool.
Tons of little tunnel hole boats that were like being pulled behind hot rods and in the hot rod magazines. You don't really see that anymore, but it's but they are like the flat bottom. That's that's very West Coast. Here in the Midwest, we get like we just started putting like 19-inch wheels on things, so we're a little behind the times, I guess. So we
run some 87 Wellcrafts,
right? But the flat bottom stuff and like the drag boats and the river boats and stuff, we never really got into out here. Very West Coast, but they're cool. I don't know a hell of a lot about them other than they look like hot rods to me.
We don't have any flat water where you can drive them.
A lot of flat water, and but I've got a guy I grew up with that builds boats out here. He's a custom guy. He's been doing billet stuff, for 100 years on boats, and really nice billet stuff. And then when I got into hot rod stuff, I used to tell him all the time, like, man, you got to check out this hot rod stuff. Like, you need to build a car and quit messing with boats. And so it was interesting because that is one thing. I think the boat guys, the hot rod boat guys, I think they were doing billet a lot longer ago than before the car guys got into that.
Yeah, easier to throw away and justify throwing away a lot more money on boats, I think, than cars. Bigger, more motors, more parts. Took the hot rod guys a while to get up to that budget.
Yeah. So on your podcast, right? Oil and whiskey. You guys drink whiskey every episode, and you do reviews on it. And I've been beer and wine my whole life, and I'm pretty old, so that's a long life. 5 years ago, I went on a no carb thing. I had to lose some weight, right? So I got to quit drinking beer. So I'm like, man, I got to learn how to drink. So I said, I was working for Eddie at the time, and he's like, dude, you got to drink scotch. I'm like, all right, I try scotch. I bought a bottle of Johnny Walker, and I bought some good stuff. I'm like, I want to make sure I get some good stuff, and I couldn't do it, man. Every night I'd have a couple sips. It just was nasty, and gave up. And then my son's father-in-law was telling him, because he's a big scotch guy, he's like, dude, you got to try bourbon. So I tried bourbon. I'm like, that's good. So I've been drinking bourbon, and not a lot. But then I see your show, and my favorite bourbon was Basil Hayden.
Oh no! So you do watch the show.
I do.
Hey, it's okay. Don't let us influence you or sway your opinion. Everybody's palate's different, Joe.
I know, but I'm trying to be, dude. I'm trying to be cool. I'm old, and I'm trying to act like I know it. But yeah, so now there's a half a bottle up there. I'm like, I can't possibly drink that ever again.
Hey, you mix it with Coke.
Some guys like Evinrude's,
Yeah.
Right.
No,
we'll send some good stuff your way.
Yeah. So how'd the podcast come about? I'm interested in that, obviously.
Oh man, I guess we've had a ton of networks approach us, or sometimes you don't even know what they are. Maybe they're networks, maybe they're just
fishermen.
Yeah, you never know. But people constantly approaching us about doing a TV show, right? And we were always like, it just doesn't seem right for us. It gets in the way of business.
Yeah.
It's, we're not like goofy characters. We've got a lot of professionals in the shop. You don't have those crazy personalities that they're searching for. So, kept turning those away. And then we linked up with a company, Ironclad, who they produced the podcast to do, kind of some stuff that would be video based for some good marketing material, but not goofy like a TV show. And they did a road tour series where they just kind of followed us along on a road tour that we did, and it came out really cool. Good dudes to work with, and they started floating it out there to us, and we're kind of like, originally we're like, fucking podcast.
We shot it down for 6 months.
I don't know about that. No. And at the time they kept their floating. Well, man, I mean, you could do TV. There's they're pitching us some stuff about these networks and these guys and those guys, and then it just kind of clicked. We're like, oh man, if you're gonna spend the time doing one or the other, a podcast is a hell of a better marketing tool, in my opinion. And that's just kind of the direction we went. We got fortunate, to hook up with the right guys, but it is a lot more relaxed. It doesn't get in the way of the business. I mean, I think it helps greatly with the business from a marketing standpoint. We get the opportunity to kind of do what we want, have the creative control, and bring people on there that we want to talk to. So it's actually fun.
Get a lot of really cool people in our industry, and just people that have a car background, and just hear their story, how they made their business, how they made their product, how they made their money, what their excitement, what their likes are. And then we get to drink bourbon in the process of it. So a lot of the same reason we started a hot rod shop is because we like cars. So we're just going to turn that into a business to justify it. Right. So I don't get yelled at by my wife as much for buying bourbon now, because I say it's for a podcast.
Oh, really? Wow.
So I could slide that under the radar a little bit. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you can also, slide the rest of it on the company card too.
Right off.
Right off. Yeah. And we're much more entertaining after a few than sober. So.
I don't really tell, because I remember there was one, I was texting Jeremy the next day. I can't remember what it was, and Jeremy's like, Did you understand what I was saying in the end? Because I was bad, and I'm like, no, I can never tell that you guys are. I mean, obviously you've had a couple guests, Ring Brothers, that were
that you could tell.
I was looking for the hook on that one, man. I'm like, oh, come on.
Man, I think it's the training. It's 15 years of car shows and SEMA. I mean, you build up quite the
tolerance.
Yeah, you guys, I'd have to say you guys were A+ on the training, and when it comes to that area, from what I know, yeah, absolutely. That's probably where I lost you a long time ago. There's no freaking way.
And when we first started doing it, I'd say the first 4 or 5 of them, we were getting through them, and we were finishing a bottle between the 3 of us, and then sometimes dipping into another one. We didn't really remember a lot about the podcast. You know, like at that time, it was almost kind of cool because you could go back and listen to it, and it was like entertaining.
All fresh,
new content.
But we looking back at it now, we're into the second season. We've done like I think almost 80 of them, or something.
Yeah, now we're down to like half a bottle.
Yeah, half a bottle.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's been fun, man. I'm sure the same for you. You end up with, it's always like the most unsuspecting people that end up having such a cool story that you'd never hear.
It's really cool, and I'm getting better at it. You know, I get off of everyone going, oh man, I forgot to ask him this, I forgot to ask him that, and yeah, you know, you guys know how it is too. You work full time, so you don't really. I don't have a lot of time to prepare, so I just kind of a little bit prepare, and which that's also kind of fun, is getting surprised. But yeah, I know I just did a guy a week ago. He worked for two small California boat companies out here, SKV and Hallett. He was just a rigger, but he was just like, I don't know if he's kind of like your Chad. Like he's just a rock solid, quiet dude, helped people all the time. And then we were just talking one time on a Facebook for some reason, and I had him on, and I just released it today. And dude, he's like the preview thing the reel I put out saying it's up. It's like 2 times more views in one day than even more than Finnegan's. I'm like, who knows this guy? It's just crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, you never know.
And he texts me. He's like, man, this is really cool. People are texting me. Like I didn't know like I was that nice of a guy. I'm like, yeah, you were, dude. So that part's cool. So I guess I should explain. So you guys, what your main business is you do reproduction frames for hot rods, classic cars and trucks. But by reproduction, I mean they're a highly upgraded frame compared to what the stock frames are. And then of course, kind of the sky's the limit as far as what you can do. You can do everything from a nice high end, better than replacement, to some crazy, road race type stuff, 4-wheel type of stuff. So. I mean, I guess I'm explaining it correctly, and I guess the people out there that have hot rods or don't have hot rods kind of understand that. But
yeah, and it's basically like it's like building a hull for a go fast boat. That's what we do for cars, but then we also finish them too. We get quite a few high end resto mods and some show car stuff we do, but it's real high performance frames that kind of make classic cars ride and perform like modern day sports cars.
Mm-hmm. And then you guys have gotten in trucks and you've always been classic trucks, but you got into 4-wheel drive stuff in the last few years. And why don't you tell some boat guys might like to know about that Legend series that you're doing?
Yeah. So we kind of want to do something that was more like a kind of a throwback. You always are like attracted to things that you remember from when you were a kid, whether it was something you had or something one of your family members had. And growing up for me and Phil, being 40, 42, square body trucks were like, that was the shit. Those things were just so badass. You'd see them everywhere. My dad had probably half a dozen different models.
Tow trucks and crew cabs and stretch crew cabs, Suburbans.
Yeah.
Plow trucks. I mean, they were just everywhere.
Yeah.
Probably like the Model Ts when you were growing up.
Yeah.
You didn't have to crank them.
Hey, that was my first. I thought we were going to get that at the end. We're going to guess for my first car.
We'll get into it.
That's a wagon.
So we, there was a lot of guys doing it. At that time, everybody was still really focused on all the slam trucks, like putting them on airbags and setting them low to the ground. And it was a little unorthodox to do something high end in a 4-wheel drive platform. So, really wanted to do a truck that was like of OEM quality, like all the performance of a brand new truck, but wrapped in an old truck. And it's easy to say that, and a lot of people have done stuff where they just yanking a new truck off of its chassis and try to like retrofit something old, and it looks exactly like what I just said. They the two just don't mix. So we put a ton of engineering into them, and built a really, really cool package that takes those square body trucks, so 1973 to basically 1980, and it is legitimately like an awesome daily driver. I've got one that it's my only form of transportation. That's what I drive every day, and it's such a useful truck. They're independent front suspension, push button 4-wheel drive. They're 650 horsepower supercharged LT4s with 8-speed transmissions. We've got helper bags and hitches and everything you need on a truck to make it just like owning a brand new truck. So it's super useful, and it also looks really cool. And they're short wheelbase, easy to drive, easy to park. They kind of came out of like new trucks just looking like so over the top. Everything got so fluffy and so luxurious.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, for me, getting on this podcast was I didn't even think of controlling all these electronics myself. I asked Phil and Josh. So a lot of that truck was out of my own handicaps of like, I can't work all that electric.
You can barely operate a computer.
Yeah, like the crap in the dash. It's like, I mean, you've got to have, like an engineering degree, or, I can't do it. I need 3 knobs on the dash and a volume knob for the stereo. And that's all I want. So kind of took all that crap out of it and made something you could really drive the wheels off of. And we love them, man. We're doing a whole bunch of them for some really good customers, and they're fun trucks.
Yeah.
There's a ton of technology on the backside to make all that work. So the entire trucks were 3D scanned, completely designed, engineered in SolidWorks. A ton of components everywhere in the truck that are machined or 3D printed in-house specifically for these trucks, and to keep that old school look and feel, but have all modern amenities and modern reliability, performance, usability.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, the crossover for the boats, I mean, a lot of that, like those throwbacks, I remember seeing my dad pull stuff in the driveway, some power boats, seeing pictures, like, I've got some pictures from my grandparents that are, this old 28 Magnum sitting on the side of the road behind a square body, probably a mid-70s square body 4x4 pickup. And, Dad coming down the driveway he built an extended, like cut a crew cab down the middle, extended it, made this thing super rad.
And cowboy limousine.
Yeah, it was so bitchin'. And coming home with a big trailer behind it with all like the sand toys and stuff in it, getting ready to go to the dunes. And got some big pictures sitting in the garage of a 2500. It's like probably a late 70s Suburban with that big Excalibur.
Yeah.
Excalibur 45 Hawk, I think that thing was behind it.
Oh, he had one of those, really?
Yeah.
Wow. So have you had guys buy them that are towing with them that you know of?
Nah, I mean, they've got all the stuff on it to tow, like, we're doing it more for, like, if you guys got some dirt bikes or got some, little Razor UTV stuff like that, just so you can, use it and haul your stuff. But as of yet, I don't know if guys are, like, getting crazy with hauling stuff with them, other than hauling ass, right?
Had to do it. You set yourself up for it. That doesn't count.
Oh, that's awesome. God, that's awesome. You got dad jokes.
Yeah. Getting old. I just turned 40, Joe. So
Oh my God.
He's like your kid's age now.
No, I don't have any 40. I got one 35. So, I mean, I know a little bit about you guys growing up around boating. What was the extent of, like, what'd you guys do about, like, when you were younger? Did you guys always have boats, or what kind of boating did you do?
Yeah, we've always had boats. My parents and grandparents had a house in the Florida Keys when I was a year old, and it had everything from center consoles, little bay boats, smaller sport fishermen, then got into a couple of power boats, some early Donzies. I had a Sweet 16 Donzi when I was
You
a
did
teenager,
personally?
and yep.
Oh, those are so cool.
Still have it. And,
You do? Wow.
Tore around the bay in that thing nonstop, just trimmed up, throttle all the way down.
2 hands on the steering wheel.
Oh, yeah.
I was always pushing to hit 60 miles an hour. I was like banging off 58, 59.
Yeah.
But yeah, just love tearing around in that thing, jumping in the ocean. And
dude, you hit that better than the Miata.
This is something to actually be proud of.
Yeah, I feel like isn't that a cool boat? That's not a
Oh, dude,
that's
cool.
a classic, dude.
So cool.
The Miata you don't want to be bragging about. That's not something you brag about.
So ironically, I worked for Powerboat Magazine for a couple of years, and our editor at the time is a big-time Miata racer. In fact, he writes for NASA magazine that races those things. So every time you say it, I think about him. Anyhow. Yeah. So the thing I keep bugging you about is what I did find out at one point. Your dad had I believe, 27 Magnum that you guys at some point restored. And so I really, obviously, that was main reason for this call is I really want to hear the story behind that, kind of how that came about. I don't know if it was a surprise for him, and anyhow, I want to hear all about it, and I'll ask you some questions because I was just going back through the pictures you sent me, man. You guys, that was a crazy restoration you guys did as boats go. So.
Yeah, man. When I look back at the pictures too, I'm like, I cannot believe that we did that. You know, I mean, that's all we do that for a living here with cars, and you take on some monumental projects, but that thing seems like, holy shit, I can't believe we actually completed that. That was a big one. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a long story. It goes way back, really. My dad had a 28 Magnum Maltese, and it was before either of us were born. That was, you know, probably back in the late 70s, something like that. And, you know, it was something that, you just got those like stories that somebody's always telling you. And my dad always talked about that boat because we were into power boat. You know, we like go fast boats, and we had all kinds of boats. But that was the boat that when we were kids, he's always talking about like how badass this boat was. And, you know, talking about, you know, it was a Magnum, so a Don Arno boat, and talking a little bit about him. And it was like, he talked about it so much that it was kind of like this elusive, like legend almost, you know? And it was, you just thought it was really cool. And you'd see some pictures of it, and you're like, man, that is badass. And it was funny. He used to say, which, you know, it'll come first full circle, because he always used to say that boat he could make it dance on the water. And that was such a weird, like, what the fuck are you talking about, Dad? You know, like, make the fucking boat dance on the water. And it's the absolute best description of how that boat performs. Like, I mean, I've driven a lot of fast boats, and that thing, you know, the long story in between, like all this, but that's exactly what that boat does. I mean, you can make that thing just like comes alive. I mean, a crazy throttle response, and just the way that boat slices. And it's like, as soon as you get into the throttle, that boat like hops up, and it's like in attack mode, you know?
Yeah.
And it just unfucking believable, the performance of that thing. But it was, yeah, just something he always talked about. It was something I think he sold when this asshole was born.
Yeah. Freaking, so, you know what? How come it always freaking Phil?
Yeah. He probably would have still.
In my defense, I had no control over that.
I would have probably inherited the boat. But yeah, it was always talked about. And then he had a couple other Magnums. He had when I was younger, he had a Magnum 35 Express. And
wow.
So as kids, you know, we had like our little Magnum jackets and stuff. That was in the era of like dressing your kids the same and getting them all accessorized. But, you know, the little, like the Magnum crest, whatever you'd call it on the side, I always thought that was just so damn cool. So for some reason as a kid, I was just like infatuated with that brand. You know, they were super cool boats. And then just to like keep that obsession going, and I think I must have been like 13, 14 years old. And I read the book, which is probably the only book I've ever actually read, like cover to cover, Blue Thunder, which is about Don, you know, just the history of Don Arno, which is something that whatever I was 13-year-old probably shouldn't have been reading, because it was all about basically drugs and hookers and, you know, killing and boats and all that cool shit that happened in Miami in the 70s and 80s.
I prepared you for the hot rod industry, so.
It did. But that was, you know, again, another one of those things that like stuck with you, that I'm like, holy shit, this dude is badass, you know? And that was something that I always remember, man, that Don Arno was just such a cool dude, you know? And it's probably cliche, because I'm sure lots of boat guys, you know, I don't know if that's like Carroll Shelby, you know? I don't have, you know, Don Arno didn't unfortunately sign the dash of the boat like everything that Carroll Shelby ever built, but it was just really fucking cool. I don't even know how to describe it. It was really inspirational and stuck with me. And then, you know, later in life, Dad just kept talking about that boat. And I said to myself, me and Phil were chatting. We're like, you know what we should do is find one of those boats. Find one and fucking restore it. You know, with all our resources, our skills, and what we can do with the cars, you know, we could do something super rad with a boat. Turned out to be very difficult to find one. You know, they're out there, but you're looking at, it's not like cars. You know, you could find a car from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and they're pretty salvageable. When you're looking at, you know, a boat from the 70s, the years aren't nearly as kind on them.
And it's hard to see if it's good or not. Like until you really dig into, pull up subfloors or whatever, you don't always know that the thing's got problems.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Very, very hard to see. And there's not a lot of options out there. So I'll bet you we searched for a couple years.
Yeah.
Idea popped in our head and it was just years of searching. And one day I get on that offshore only, and, they've got the forums and stuff. And I was constantly looking through the stuff there, and I end up seeing in some random forum somebody had taken a picture of something, and there was just like a little boatyard there, and in the background you see a 27 Magnum Sport sitting in the back, and it's got a for sale sign on the bow of it that's like handwritten, for sale 12.5, and there's a phone number on it. So I zoom in on the picture thinking to myself, like, I don't know, this could have been taken 5 years ago or something. And I just give the guy a call, and turns out it like just recently listed it. Boats for sale. It's in Miami, and I said, man, I'll fucking take it. It was so exciting to actually find it that I didn't ask all those important questions. Like, I think I got to send a surveyor down there, and we got to put a moisture meter on the transom. And how is the transom? Is there a transom in the boat?
You can push your hand through it.
Yeah. So, and just to add like to that, as to, it should have been another red flag, because I'll bring it up to you, man. Because then they know, by the time he brings it up, you're pretty well committed.
Yeah,
right? You're buying the fucking thing. So, guy runs it up from Miami and shows up here at the shop. And we planned on keeping this a secret from my dad. The idea was that we're going to restore this. We're going to give it to him as a surprise. And guy shows up. And again, it's like when you finally see it, it was like the holy grail. So you didn't look at all the...
A little blinded or starstruck.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what are you going to do? We're going to look for a better one. Like, what are you going to do?
Exactly.
Yeah, coming from restoring the car world, and that's what we tell our customers all day, every day, is find the best possible car to start with to minimize the rust repair and the work you don't want to do, and focus your budget on the cool, exciting things. Threw all that out the window and just...
Yeah, we just dove in. So we buy the boat, right?
And your dad wasn't. You didn't see it.
No, he's not at the shop. And the plan was, I had a good buddy that he actually worked for us in the body shop department. He also had his own little shop down the street from our shop, the Roadster Shop. It was probably 2 blocks from here. Little pole barn down a gravel road. So we bring the boat over there, and the plan, we're going to work on it there after work, weekends, and bring it over there, and we finally get to dive into this thing and start checking it out. So day one, just tear it all down, right? And it's loaded with like all sorts of decent parts. Somebody restored this thing, so I start doing a little research, because you could see there's a name on the side of the boat. So people like freak out about you can never change the name of a boat. That's the fucking name. Don't touch the name. So it said powder keg on the side of the boat. So I jump onto the forums and I start checking into it, and somebody's like, yeah, that boat, man, what the hell are you doing restoring? That boat doesn't need to be restored. It was just done like 5-6 years ago. Mark McManus from Apache just redid the whole boat. Yeah.
Wow.
So I start digging in. I start finding like information on this thing, and you find some pictures. And it turns out, I guess somebody spent like 60, 70 grand with this Mark McManus down there, like really doing a nice restoration, because you could see some stuff like the rigging, up under the dash on the thing, all the wiring, you got zip ties perfectly placed, and there was some professional stuff on it. So it was like, what happened to this? Because the thing is a total basket case. Well, I guess dude restores it, and then I don't know if he didn't pay his bill or something happened, and the boat just ended up sitting outside for like 8 years or something, filled up with water, everything rotted away. So long story short, I made the whole floor, stringers, bulkheads, transom, the deck, it had like a styrofoam, it's a foam core in the deck. So that all rotted and was warped. So when you're like standing looking over the bow, which that boat, all it is bow, it had this big wave in it, and it was a mess. But dove right in, took everything apart, and that was back in my like super ambitious days. Like, yeah, man. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, you know what? I think we gotta take the fucking deck off of this thing. That's the only way that we're gonna do this right, because I know we're gonna put like the floor back on it and do tanks and stuff, but I want everything like super nice. I wanted like gel coat everything because I'm thinking like I'm building a car, which maybe not the best way of doing it.
Now, when I was looking at the pictures, did you start on it with you weren't going to take the deck off? Because it looks like you kind of started on the floor and stuff.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah. I started on it, and then just a lot like I guess guys in our industry that like you jump on the forums and you start getting ideas. I'm looking around and I'm like, I'm staring at all these different restorations and stuff. And the thing about those Magnum Sports is they've got like 0 freeboard in them, so it's almost like a sit down boat, but it's not configured that way. So when you're standing in the boat, it hits you like mid thigh. So I decide, well, I'm going to cut down all the stringers in this thing.
Oh my gosh.
And then I'm going to make new stringers and I'm going to double them up. And then I can sink the floor down in this thing so that you're standing in it. Cool. You can stand up and drive the boat and not look like a goofball, So I did all that and start like just buying all sorts of fiberglass shit and researching and find a lot of interesting guys on some of these forums and connecting with different people because I knew nothing about any of that stuff.
Yeah, you're doing all this. You're doing all this fiberglass yourself personally.
Yeah, me and then this other dude who worked for me over, down the street.
Yeah. So you didn't have you didn't turn it over to like a glass guy or.
Eventually, we'll get there. We'll get there.
You kind of okay.
Yeah. So we get through with all that, and you're like, man, we just got to take the deck off. So pull the deck off so we can get in and start changing up, and doing some of the bulkheads. We reskin the front tanks in it, and get pretty far along on it. You'll get through with a whole bunch of glass work, end up finding a local guy who's like literally right down the street from here who happens to have, he's a fiberglass guy, and he happens to have a 27 Magnum Sport himself.
Way. Wow.
Yeah. That's right here in Fox Lake on this little chain of lakes that's, basically in our town. And here's this thing, this yellow, like crazy. He did it like, super modern. He like molded everything in, and it's a very high-end boat. So I'm like, what are the odds of this, right? But really cool resource. Good dude. And he, I wasn't going to tackle the transom myself. I knew that was, just out of my, comfort level. So he knocked out the transom, got it back, and we just kept rocking and rolling on it. Started fabricating all sorts of stuff and got a good chunk of the boat done. And then again with this Magnum community is kind of crazy. Get a random call from some dude at the shop calling, inquiring about some chassis stuff. And the lady up front, she comes back and she's like, "You want to talk to this guy?" I'm like, "You could kick him over to a sales guy." Well, he keeps talking about this Magnum boat that he's got, and that's all he talks. He's just keeps saying he's got all these Magnum boats. So I thought maybe you want to talk to him. So I'm like, "Oh yeah, shit, that sounds cool. I'll talk to him." Well, it turns out this guy's name is Peter Young, and he lives in Miami, Florida, and he's a Magnum fanatic and like super high energy dude. So we hit it off, and I'm telling him about what I've got going on. He's like, "Well, just bring that thing down to me, and I'll take care of everything on the deck." So he says he's got a guy that works with him, and his name's Brownie. So Brownie's his nickname. I guess he was a dude who worked for Magnum in its heyday, and did all sorts of glass work, rigged all sorts of boats. So we decided, well, shit, let's just load this thing up and bomb down to Florida. So me and Phil hooked the trailer up and southbound, It's fun that era of that boat. I think it went back and forth into Florida. Shit,
4 or 5 times.
So we go down there, and the boat community can be really cool because this dude was like, you have no idea. He's go down some random street. He lives like inland in Miami, but you kind of go back through these trees and get into his like driveway, and there's a fucking like 45-foot Magnum sitting
in his backyard.
Sitting in his backyard, and then we go in his garage, which is a little detached garage that it looked like a single car garage, but then he opens the door and the thing goes like way back. There's the hole for another 35 Magnum in there, and he's got one of those Magnum missiles, the little tunnel hole bolt, sitting down on the floor in there, and we hit it off. He's going over the whole thing, and then he's like, well, hey, why don't you come over? Let me take you out. My parents' house right down the street from here, and I've got a Magnum Maltese that I did. I'd like to show you some of the shit I did. So this boat was super badass. I mean, it was all like modernized. I mean, he like, glassed the top deck into the hole and radius everything. It had all modern kind of powerboat paint scheme and stuff with some like 496 Mercury power package in it. So just like a nice cruiser, but that was it. It kind of sucked because it was, I wanted to wait for the experience of driving this boat and being, my first Magnum sport cruise. But he took us out through the, like that government cut and everything down there in Miami and ripping this thing. And that was really cool, man. It was, but I guess energy to keep pushing to get the thing across the finish line.
That's just like hot rod guy, man. Just niche down. This guy's the Magnum guy. Crazy.
Yeah, he was like the odds of finding this guy, man, crazy. So he ended up doing, all sorts of work. He recored the entire deck and bonded the deck on. Had some another additional set of tanks made for it because this boat had bow tanks in it. So we did another set of tanks so you could have some sort of ballast, to kind of control, how the boat's weighted. And he had it for probably about a year, and he helped me out with some of the big heavy lifting on it. And we basically got it back as pretty much like just a
good starting point.
Yeah, a good starting point. And after that, it's just like one story of meeting random dudes after another that I could jump on the internet, find there's a guy right in Huntley, 45 minutes away, has a website, that Magnum Marine Restorations.
Really? Wow.
And he's got all sorts of random old parts, so I get a bunch of like bright work from him, and then we fabricated all sorts of shit, and it was just, it was like a 6 or 7 year project.
It took that long?
Yeah. And it was back and forth, because we were working with, my dad was still working with us at the time, but he was in, back and forth to Florida and stuff and wasn't spending a lot of time here. But as soon as he would leave, we'd bring the boat back into clear the whole shop out, and we'd pull it into the back of the shop so I could work on it here, in the evenings. And then as soon as you knew he was coming back, it was move all the cars, yard the boat out, run it back down to my buddy's shop, and boat was in and out of the shop countless times. But finally got it across the finish line. That's definitely one of those projects you looked at and be like, that's never getting done.
Though that's one thing, just knowing how busy you guys are. When I saw it, that was the first thing I was thinking. I was looking, I'm like, okay, first of all, I'm pretty sure they kept this a secret. So I don't know how the heck this had to be at somebody else's shop, because there's no way. And I just kept thinking of the enormity of the project. Like, how did you pull that off? So obviously you had to get a little bit of help on this one. So, but you're smart enough to know that was a little outside of your scope anyhow. So you would have spent more time learning how to do it than just having that guy do it.
Yeah. Yeah. He did a hell of a good job on all that, but,
you guys painted it, didn't you?
Yeah, we painted it. That was another one. Dad's out of the shop for a little while. So we clear out the whole body shop. And we're slinging
making hoists.
Yeah, I've got.
I saw you guys had the whole thing slung. You're painting the bottom of it for like underneath the bottom. Crazy.
He's got a little bit of a perfectionist problem, so it's like the world's straightest Magnum, probably straighter than they were ever built.
Yeah. And there's not a cigarette outer limits MTI. There isn't a boat made to this day that's half as straight as that boat.
That fiberglass had to piss you off, though, because fiberglass is so freaking hard. Nothing on a boat straight.
Oh, it's brutal. And every time you block the side of it, all the bulkheads, they'd like print through. And it took, it's loaded with all sorts of fillers and stuff to get it, really, I guess you would call that fairing in the marine industry.
Fairing? I haven't heard of that one.
We call it body work. Body worked the shit out of it.
Okay, then I saw at one point it had small block Chevys in it to start with. I saw them in the back of the truck. Were you going to get them rebuilt at some point, or you knew you were never going to use the small blocks?
No, small blocks were never getting used. I traded those out to this dude, this Magnum guy, for some various. It was missing a handful of things, like some of the vents and some scoops that were in the side. So I gave him the motors and got some of that OG Magnum stuff that was missing on it. And dude came, put them all on an open car trailer with all these random parts I gave him. And I'm like, you going to tie that down, man? You got a long ways to go. No, we're good. And I watched this guy fucking pull out. He didn't make it 3 blocks. Everything's laying in the street. I'm like, okay.
Open flatbed trailer and just boxes of small parts on it.
Wait, come on. You haven't seen that before with all these car guys?
Yeah, we've seen some interesting stuff, but that one takes the cake, man. The guy's calling me for like the next 3 weeks. Hey, what happened? There was that vent that I remember you telling me you were going to give me that. I'm like, yeah, dude, it's probably on the side of the
on Route 83 somewhere.
So the small blocks were gone. That was immediately, I knew because of the boat. It's a 27-foot boat. It's not, it's heavy for what it is, but it's light enough that it didn't need small blocks, and I didn't want to cram big blocks in it. And I figure what we do, we put LS motors in everything that we build. And I always said to myself, I'm like, this is way before, I don't think there was an LS motor in a boat, back then.
It's so crazy. When I got into the hot rod industry, when I was selling advertising, so I did that for like 8 or 9 years, right? Everything's LS. So I go back to work for Ed, and now I'm doing boat parts again. I'm like, dude, guys, LS. And they're like, what's an LS? Like, literally, it's crazy. I mean, it's getting a little bit more now, but it's still kind of more like grassroots kind of stuff or brand new stuff. But yeah, it's crazy. So that was really cool. I remember when I saw that, like, so you ran into that there are not a lot of resources for parts. And yeah.
Yeah, at the time, there were, zero resources for parts for them. It was like, it was unheard of. And if you mentioned to somebody that that's what you were doing, they'd just tell you you're crazy because
you're bastardizing the marine industry by putting a car motor in it.
Right. You've got that's a car motor. You can't use that.
Aluminum. They're not going to spin up. They're going to blow up. You're going to be shooting stuff out the sides. Can't handle the abuse. Can't handle the running wide open.
But for a boat that size, you're probably not going to put LS motors in a 48-foot boat. But a 27-foot boat, the LS motors, you're making plenty of torque, more power than plenty of big blocks. If you're not searching for, 1,100 horsepower, they're perfect. So Texas Speed put a pair of them together, and they did their research to make sure it's really the cam. You got to look out for the overlap on the cam, so you don't know with any like reversion or anything. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, they did the due diligence there to make sure they got that stuff set up right, and put together a pair of 550 horse LS3s, which package really good in that boat because you can really clean. You could tuck them together, get the centers really close so the drives are nice and tucked in. But the manifolds were tricky because you see that a lot. Like the thing that's the sexiest about those boats are the lines of it. The boat looks like it looks like a bullet, right? It's so slick and the lines are so flowing. But then you see guys put like big blocks with a single plane manifold and a big spark arrestor on top, and they do these big goofy race hatches on the back, which I was absolutely not going to do. So I find this company, High Tech, out of Australia, that they were making these things. I don't even know what application they were for, but it's like a hand fabricated low profile manifold. So they don't look like big tube like whether it's CMI or something like that, but they fit the boat so good because you could I put some little notches in the bottom of the factory hatch, and you can lay that factory flat hatch down, and you'd almost wouldn't even think that there's motors in the damn thing. But that all worked out really, really cool.
Yeah, no, for that 27, LSs were probably perfect because big blocks are good and everything, but you're almost, I don't know, physically you're almost you're just taking up a lot of room.
Yeah, the only thing you don't get is that idle. When you're at the dock, it's not like cackling and pissing off everybody at the restaurant, but they're pretty tame. Because they're just straight. They're not baffled or anything, just straight out the back. But sounds rad, but they're not nasty.
Did you plug the drive holes? You said you narrowed it. You narrowed the centers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Which for that I just figured, people say they should be like close together, so just put them fucking as close as you can get them, and that's as close as they can be, right? That makes sense. They can only go so close.
Yeah, as long as you can work on them. Or most of the time, guys only give a shit about that usually.
Yeah, so we've got models, all that stuff in CAD, so I could just take the we modeled up the manifolds and then put them on the motors and then just put them as tight together as you could to come up with the center lines. And then I did work with some guys who knew their stuff on like getting that X dimension as far as where to put them up and down, but seems like that's always a shot in the dark anyway. But it worked out. Boat does everything perfectly.
It had Volvos in it. You put Bravos in it, I think, right?
Yeah, they're Bravo XRs.
Yeah, that's cool. It's nice that you kind of almost had a blank piece of paper to do that because and who knows, a lot of times the builders will put that stuff in conservative just to stay out of trouble, so they don't have cavitation problems or make a boat squirrely. So it's cool you got to start with a blank slate on that and do it right.
Yeah, I know the Magnum guys were like, man, keep those Volvos. Those things are beautiful. Why the hell would you swap those out? Dude, they don't even have trim on them. Like, they suck.
Oh, they didn't have trim on them?
No.
Yeah.
And the guys are talking, you could take the trim ram from an outboard and do that. I'm like, yeah, you can go fuck yourself. I'm Bravos.
So Volvos are actually really good drives. In fact, the Bravos, they have a cone clutch in the top end that shifts them. It's actually a spiral cone clutch. They stole that from Volvo. So it's actually a really good design, but Volvo, it's still Swedish, like it's all back. We don't need trim, that kind of stuff. So, but no, and plus the boat's worth way more money. I don't know if you're worth way more money with Bravos. You can get access to good props and it's way better. Yeah, way better. So that's awesome. So did it stay a surprise?
Yeah, the boat, somehow it stayed a surprise. I mean, all the close calls and the things that would randomly get shipped to the shop and the stories that I felt bad for a while because the bullshit lies that we would tell my dad. Like, I'd have like a pallet of laminated marine plywood with teak laminated marine plywood because I had to do that deck insert, and I think he intercepted that, and I don't even remember. It was some complete bullshit story that I gave him about what it was for, use it on some car. I guess I was fortunate to have a history of telling him the truth on things, so he didn't question it too much.
Yeah, but dude, he's not the kind of guy that you could slide that shit by.
I don't know how the hell we did it.
It was a lot of fire drills to get it in and out of the shop and keeping him out and working with my mom to make sure he didn't come home early or didn't come into work that day, took the weekend off.
Yeah, we'd either even have her keep him down in Florida a little bit longer if we were really thrashing to hit a milestone on it. You just stay down there another week, will you?
That's awesome. I didn't know you guys actually. I thought this was an old boat he had and he restored. So the fact that you went out and found one too, you guys are fucking awesome. I mean, what did you give it to him for his birthday, or was it just a random? How did you give it to him?
No, we just decided to. The timing was right, and we ended up finding out that he was diagnosed with cancer. So we were trying to expedite this thing. So we just decided, well, fuck it. It's pretty much there. It wasn't finished, but it looked finished. The motors were in it. It was all detailed up, all the chrome and bright work and the windshield. I mean, you name it. Other than being rigged, it was all there. So we backed it into the shop and set up some lights and everything, cleaned the whole shop. I think we went out to dinner or something and said, hey, we got to stop by the shop. There's something I got to grab. And me and Phil and our wives and kids, we all went back into the way back of the shop. And then my mom kind of walked him back to the back of the shop. And I don't know what he thought he was there for or something, but he had no clue at all. Not a fucking clue what was happening.
That's unbelievable.
So it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
she walked him back and he saw it and it was instantly in tears. I mean, that's a dude you'd never see
that's
in
what
tears,
I was wondering, yeah.
And it was, to him, he saw it and he said you could see the lines, the chrome, all the things that were done, and he immediately knew that we built it, because it was, you can look at it and it's not something that you just bought off a boat trader.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, absolutely.
It's a pretty special piece.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So that's okay. So that's when he was already sick, so he got to see it before he. That's awesome. Yeah, I can't even imagine. I think I've told you guys before. Like, I met you guys when you were young. When you first, actually, I think I met you before you even owned the company. All right, when you were still working for Bill at that scrubby shop with that dog that would try to eat me, and man, you guys like. And everybody in the industry knows it. You two, especially for young guys, like you're just such hardworking guys. You always have been from day one. And I know he was always, super proud of what you guys did. And there's a lot of entitled kids that get help from their dad that never do half of what you guys have done. And the effort's been amazing. So I'm sure that boat was just one more thing where that guy just said, "Oh, these freaking kids are unbelievable." So that's amazing thing you guys did.
I think it's probably the greatest thing he ever received or ever owned in his life,
Yeah. So did he
stoked?
Yeah. Did he admit it was better, or what did he have to say about it?
Oh yeah, so the thing was, he had a Maltese, which was it was the same hull but a little different deck.
Okay.
But the Sport was the cool one to have, and back then you couldn't jump. It's not like you could jump on the internet, and seek one out. So he settled for the Maltese and always said, "Man, the Sport, it's the slickest boat ever." And so he was just blown away. And then
that's awesome.
It was just one surprise after another, because it's open the hatch and there's two LS, wicked LS motors, and everything was really cool. Lavorsi, he's right in town here, and did some cool one-off gauges that we spun up some little spun stainless discs for him to make them look like the old Stuart Warner gauges from that era, but it's got all his modern internals with LED backlit and everything. So every single piece on that's like a surprise and something cool to look at. So it was a lot to digest.
Yeah, unbelievable. And how was it the first day you went out and drove it?
So it was good and bad. Really fucking good, right? So first, I'll tell you, we to get it rigged, because now I reached the point where it was like, we don't have any more time for this shit. We put the cat's out of the bag. We put all the
hands
hard
on
work
deck.
Yeah. So I reach out to these dudes, Keith Holmes from CK Motorsports. They're right up in Nunica, Michigan. And all they do is, he had a race team, had a big cat called Cat Can Do. That ran all sorts of race series stuff up there, and brought them the boat to do all the rigging on it. So they knocked it out pretty quick, did a beautiful job. And that dude ended up getting tagged, and the sponson from another cat went right through the side of the boat and killed him.
Oh, no, in a race?
Yeah, in a race, which is crazy. Wow. I mean, crazy bad luck.
Yeah.
But another great guy. I mean, the people that we met throughout this process were like unreal. They're not the assholes that you see on the forums and Facebook pages and stuff that are motherfucking everybody. These were a lot of really good dudes. But we got the boat back from him, and then we put it in the water. And I've never seen like a grown man. He's like a child, just absolute, just laughing.
Yeah.
Giddy laughing, like he's having such a good time. And the boat just, it absolutely was mind-blowing, and he's getting the opportunity to explain to me, he's driving, you can't hear shit, it's windy, and he's, pointing and smiling and trying
I told
to
you. Oh, that's just fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yes, that was pretty cool. We ripped it, and, we were probably cruising around for, I don't know, a couple hours. And then you start idling, and all of a sudden it stopped idling. So the problem is, some of this is a learning curve, right? Because now you've got fuel-injected LS motors, and you've got 4 fuel tanks. So that was a big, maybe kind of an oversight, but also a massive pain in the ass trying to return the fuel system. So what was happening was that it was like, it was like deadheading the system at the regulators, and it was just heating up the pumps. And then if it was idling, it's perfectly fine as long as you're in the throttle, but as it would idle, it would kind of like vapor lock the pump. We ended up getting one motor fired up and pull up to this tiny little harbor in Highland Park, and take a Uber 30 miles back to get the truck and trailer and haul the boat out. But finally got that sorted. And yeah, it is probably one of the most unbelievable things I've ever driven.
Yeah, at the time you had a 38-foot cigarette, and we had a 43 Donzi, and the Magnum would just blow both those boats out of the water. Big water. I mean, it would just ride so much smoother, so much faster, more predictable. The throttle response was insane. I mean, just the way it would cut through the waves, and you can just like skip it across the water. Like, felt bad. Like, I'm beating this boat, and you just want to give it more. Yeah, I know how much time we have into it, so we're going to throttle that back a little bit.
Yeah.
This is the most mind-blowing part about it.
Yeah. What year is it? I don't know what year the boat was.
It's 71.
71. So, I mean, dude, it's like a 71. Crazy that they got it so right. Like, they got the bottom so right.
When you talk to guys like old school dudes and some veterans, I mean, everybody says that was just the perfect hull. You know, it was like, this was probably the most iconic boat. You know,
probably the most copied boat too.
Yeah. Yeah, between that and like 38 Top Gun, 41 Apache, those are the the icons. Just like Phil said, I mean, it was unreal to see what it does next to, like, we bought that 38 Top Gun just because really and truly we wanted to all go out boating together, but I wanted to watch the Magnum from the water, right? To be able to see and take that boat in. And then that Top Gun, it was like a 96 with big supercharged motors, straight bottom boat, and I mean, it sounded awesome. But dude, that Magnum would just eat its fucking lunch. I mean, even a boat that's 11 feet longer and in like 3 foot seas, I'd take that Magnum all fucking day long. We'd be ripping, and that fucking cigarette, no matter how you trimmed it, that boat's pounding you. And that Magnum, like Phil said, it's like you skipped a rock across the water.
That's crazy. Because Top Guns are supposed to be it. I mean, that's supposed to be the boat for rough water V.
I think that's like the ultimate myth, really.
Urban legend.
Yeah, it's an urban legend. That was another one where one lived up to the hype, one didn't, right?
Yeah.
The Magnum exceeded its reputation. The Top Gun was the boat that, because for me, that was the boat that I grew up with. That was, there were the bikini, neon Budweiser bikini chicks on it. And
that was like the Lamborghini Countach.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I still, I mean, until now, that was mine too. You ruined it for
probably,
me.
It's just the biggest letdown. I ran it for like 2 seasons and then got rid of it. Boat would like porpoise uncontrollably. And even, it's funny, you look at those boats, everybody raves about them. Nobody will talk bad. So, I'm talking here on a powerboat, podcast that everybody's gonna be like, this guy's an asshole. But you watch videos of these things and these dudes with these like big money. I mean, they got number 6s and all sorts of, spend a fortune on these straight bottom SIGs. And you just watch the boat just fucking, every one of them just like porpoising,
Yeah, you're making big fans.
Is there a following for the cigarette in big V's and out in the West Coast?
No, especially in the last 15 or 20 years, because we've got like DCB and Eliminator. They just do cat. The cats are super popular out here. Plus, so much lake, and our ocean. The Catalina Islands, 25 miles away. So I mean, it can get big out there, but it's still not like open water stuff. So yeah, so cats are probably the most popular thing out here now.
Dude, we got a customer that's a good buddy that's got just all kinds of MTI stuff. And that's on that you're like, holy fuck, that's impressive. Any of the MTI cats, those things are like, you're in something like high performance. Fucking boats are awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are. They're pretty amazing. He's a good dude. Used to sell him a lot of parts, but it was just 5 minutes on the phone. I never really talked to him much. So it was cool hearing that with him. He's a cool dude. And his Dubai thing, I mean, his daughter talked a little bit more about it, but that was really cool. His whole thing going over and doing Victory. That Victory team, I don't know if you guys know, but Victory team was like, it was like he had carte blanche over there. I think they had like 10 or 12 boats. It was just crazy.
Yeah, it's quite the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm so glad that I got to hear that whole story. And knowing your dad, that's really cool, man. You guys, that's awesome. You're going to keep that thing for probably like forever, I imagine, right?
Yeah, I just keep throwing more and more money into it.
Do you?
Yeah. So I just got it last season. I had it back to the dudes up at CK Motorsports. So now Mike Holford, he took it over. He was one of the guys that was working there, who is super solid guy, great guy to work with. So I sent it up to him because now that the LS stuff's caught on a little bit, there's actually some parts available. So CP Performance, they've got serpentine drums through their Hardened Marine brand. So originally I just had like those crank mounted C pumps on it that you'd see on like, I don't know, like a bass boat or something. Yeah, something that it was all we could come up with, at the time. So now they got these killer billet serpentine drives. So we swapped it out, put those on there, updated a few things, and then I just had it back in the shop the other day. I was messing around with some stuff with mounting the hatch ram and wiring some stuff up and trying to button up some details to get her ready to get back out on the water with it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it seemed. I think you had mentioned it. Scott at CP helped you out, and it seems like they're kind of the only ones that kind of. Well, there's actually. I say like they're the only ones with kind of the full line of LS parts stuff, but there's not a lot of part guys around. Parts. It's not like hot rod stuff. The high performance boat stuff's pretty small potatoes. So there's not a lot of guys around anymore. But anyhow, yeah, it seems like he's got the full.
Yeah, he was a fantastic resource and super cool guy because, big company, and I start digging into some parts and they're talking to the owner, and he was like wildly helpful, just going above and beyond, and built a pretty good relationship with him. Ended up selling him a chassis, doing a Chevelle. Yeah.
Oh, he's doing a Chevelle guy. Well, awesome. Thanks for the story. Appreciate that. It's very cool. Yeah, we're gonna put some stories together for Speedboat Magazine on that, and then actually Robert McGaffin at some point he's gonna shoot it for Wheel Hub Magazine.
Yeah, he's bugged me about it. We just
it's more balls in our court to get it in the water and get him out there.
Finally, the season where everything's ready to roll.
Yeah, and remember, Lavorsi volunteered. When you guys are ready, he'll put his center console out there so he can put Robert on it. You're gonna get some running shots of it.
Sweet.
So
yeah, that'll be great, man.
Yeah, hit him up. No, I can't wait to see Robert do his work on that boat because there's so many cool little pieces that he'll be able to highlight. It'll be really cool.
Yeah, that should be awesome. 'Cause all I have is great pictures of it, like on a trailer. Boats are tough. They're tough things to take pictures of.
They really are. They really are. But well, cool. Hey, another boat thing I kind of want to talk to you guys about is. God, I think it was like 2018, if I read it right. You guys got into a partnership with Mercury where you guys are actually distributing. I think it was like a 7-liter engine that you guys were putting in the hot rods. It was using one of their double overhead cam setups, and anyhow, how'd you guys get into that? That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was Phil's doing it.
Yeah, it was a little bit of dumb luck. We had kind of built the name and reputation for the Roadster Shop and the high-end performance muscle car stuff, and Mercury had developed this dual overhead cam LS7 based motor that they were trying to step into the car world. And from the marine side, they didn't really sell direct. Everything went through dealers, everything went through builders, and that's kind of how they had channeled everything. So they reached out to us to kind of be the marketing and sales arm for that motor, and they gave us the exclusive rights to sell it. Absolutely awesome piece. We've put it in probably 5 cars now.
Yeah. Just finishing one up right now.
Yep. Yeah, just insane motor that revs to 8,500 RPMs, which is nuts for something in the car world. Normally you're shifting at 5,500 and you feel like you're breaking it when you're driving it. You're doing like all kinds of things wrong because it just keeps pulling, and it comes alive at like 4,000 RPMs and just takes off like a 2-stroke and just pulls all the way to 8,500 RPMs. But yeah, awesome motor. Unfortunately, I think it was a timing issue with the boating world and the insane explosion on their 400Rs and then the 450s. They just couldn't keep up with them. Everyone was buying boats and hanging 14 motors off the back of them.
Right.
So they needed the capacity to keep up with that, and this was kind of a small niche thing that they were trying to get into. So after a couple years, unfortunately, they discontinued the motor and focused back in the boat world. But it was pretty cool to be part of it. Their step into the automotive world, and they built a absolute kick-ass motor. Come back out with something again in the future.
Yeah, and having a light hot rod with that motor, I mean, I think freaking could run forever.
Yeah, we had to kind of like beat them into submission on some of that stuff when they're talking about like, well, what do you see wide open throttle on one of these cars? 3 seconds, maybe, if that, like a second and a half. And like they just couldn't grasp it. They're like, well, we're coming from the boat world. You're running it wide open for, an hour.
Yeah.
And they're telling us all their endurance and durability testing, that they'd put the thing on the dyno, peg the throttle, and come back in the morning, and it was still running.
Yeah.
The cooling was a thing that they couldn't grasp either.
What's that?
Yeah.
The cooling and like radiator size and driving. You're driving in a radiator with the boat.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Did you guys have to help them develop that, like outlets and inlets and that kind of stuff?
No, I think they had everything, but it was just they flat out didn't understand transmissions and the radiator cooling side of it at the beginning.
Gotcha.
Yeah, a couple little hurdles there, but the quality of it and the performance of it, it's next level. It is a shame that it's kind of, the plug's been pulled. I'd like to see him bring it back around. It was kind of tough to swallow. The price point's up there, but it's a high-end piece.
Yeah.
And we've got one in a 70 CUDA that actually just going on the dyno here next week. That's going out to be delivered to Joe Rogan, actually. And
name dropper.
Just dropping names, man. in about a month. It would have been the ultimate launch for that motor because, pretty cool car, pretty cool dude.
Yeah.
And it's a great piece. But really, they were good dudes to work with. Had a lot of fun with them.
Yeah.
Going up. I mean, they're not terribly far from us. They're what town are they in? Wisconsin, right up in what the hell's the name of that town?
Oshkosh?
I don't know.
They're right on the bottom of Lake Winnebago.
Yeah, they all hang at that. So we go up to that Elkhart Lake, the racetrack up there, and it's like that's like Mercury owns it. The whole crew is just like the whole town's like Mercury people.
Yeah.
Pretty cool group.
Well, but the thing about that motor for your clientele, for that guy, because they're already spending, they already want something really unique. So for those guys, it's like, okay, thank you. You gave us something really unique, So for those guys, like, whatever, a lot of your clientele where the money's really not an object, it's more about the uniqueness of it and having something nobody else has. I mean, that was perfect for that.
Oh, for them, it's a bargain. I mean, if you're a boat guy, it's half the price of like one of their 1300s, and you only need one. You need one. That's it. So it's like those guys are like, oh shit, should I probably just buy another one so I have it?
Spare.
Yeah. It's insane. Every time I see those, the 4 and 5 engine 450s, and now they got 500. You just like, okay, 6 times 54. And I haven't heard. I think the 500. I think I saw like 85,000. Did you see that? I haven't seen a number.
Is that
on
what they go for?
I just saw one little blurb, but I don't know. Don't quote me on that one. I know that. I know the 450s are like 56,000.
They're great motors. Our timing's amazing. We just bought a center console, and it's got 4 400s on it. I think the day that we took delivery of it, they come out with like all their new V10s, which makes renders those like obsolete,
And that was really interesting what Randy said. Like, we just can't go back and repower because we can't get the motor, so you got to just buy another boat.
Yeah, I think they're doing a lot of good stuff for the marine industry. I mean, the outboard stuff's just totally changed the game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, outboards were always, from a rigging standpoint, it was always faster. You had more, you had more room in them. And, the power to weight ratio has always been really good on them. I think just these newer motors are so good. And then also what happened is, pandemic, you can rig a boat with 2 outboards way faster than you can rig a stern drive boat, like way faster. So a lot of these guys, it's just like, hey, I can get you a boat in 6 months. If you want the stern drive, it's going to take you 12 months or whatever, So I think that's really moved the market ahead too. But it's hard to beat, man. They're so quiet and it's just so fast and then reliable as hell.
Yeah, the reliability and the power is huge. And we came from the center console world, being down in Florida and having the old 2 smokers. And
2 smokers, yeah.
You'd go out and it's a 75% chance you're coming back on one motor. Now the 4-stroke stuff, they're just, it seems bulletproof, knock on wood.
No, I think you're right. I think they are. So what kind is the center console? What kind of boat is it?
It's a yellowfin.
A yellowfin, okay. Yeah. Do you guys fish or is this more for fun?
We drink beer.
Yeah, we drink a lot. We we hang out at the sandbar. We do a little bit of fishing, but now it's just a better kind of southern Florida style.
I mean, I was talking about when I was talking to Taylor's Sism, we were talking about that. Like those are the ultimate dual purpose boats. Like there's so much room in them. You hose them off. The kids can't hurt anything, and then if you want to go fast, you can go fast. So
Yeah, they perform pretty good. It's a great hull design on them. Take the water, great, and they crush some water. But it's like you said, wash and wear. You could just hose that thing down. It doesn't have all the, the beautiful finishes like the MTI center console stuff does. But that's just it's too much to take care of down there. For us.
Great for fishing, diving, sandbar, just hanging out, and it'll still run 75.
That's awesome. Very cool. That's cool. Your kids are all into it, and you guys get to relive all that with them too. So,
yeah, my kid's got his skater picked out. He's jonesing. It's a
really
28 skater. He's got the motors picked out, everything. The paint scheme. Wants to do something a little old school on it. Something kind of linear in those old school colors, but do like new 450s. But dude, you better get a good job.
I know they're insane. Now, is that the son? Doesn't your son? Is he the one that does the cars, draws the cars?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He's a gearhead.
Yeah. So now he's drawing boats.
Yeah. Yeah. He's old enough that he thinks he can handle it. He's got a little wave runner the kids rip around on, so he's out there doing 50, 60 miles an hour on that, and he thinks he's ready to do like a $130, 12 years old in a skater.
Yeah. Well. He could probably handle it. He's probably got more experience than some of those guys with those skaters nowadays.
I'm sure.
Wow. Well, cool. So what else is new? Anything new and exciting other than just continuing to build cool cars and become celebrities?
Yeah, I don't know about the celebrity thing, man, but just been busy. Yeah, things been rocking and rolling here. We've been chassis shop is booming. We just recently actually expanded out into a second facility.
Oh, nice.
So we're working out of 2 shops here, about 10 miles apart. That it's helped us out tremendously, and just keep growing, man. It's been really good.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for taking the time to talk to me. It was very cool of you.
No, it's our pleasure. I'm glad we could share a long-winded story about the Magnum restoration with the world.
Yeah, that's cool. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. People love that stuff. That's awesome. And you guys are kind of like my Joe Rogan now, so I can name drop.
Awesome.
I don't know if it's going to get you anywhere, but give it hell.
You must be in a real low place then, Joe, man. If we're the icons.
Yeah. I'm pretty low. I'm just the old guy in a bedroom talking about boat stuff, talking old boat stuff. So,
that's awesome, man. I'm looking forward to checking out some of the podcasts, and I dig the boat stuff. So should be
cool.
educational for me.
I didn't, like I said, I didn't realize. I mean, I knew there was a little bit in the background, but I didn't know you're still really into it. So that's cool. And did you guys ever go out to Miami Boat Show?
Yeah, we go just about every year.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I try to go every year. I haven't been for probably 6 years, but every year it's on my calendar, so maybe this year.
They changed it up drastically, moved it in a couple different locations. Not as good as it was.
Yeah, it's a little tough to navigate.
Yeah.
But they say the Fort Lauderdale show's the one to go to. I've never been, but
yeah, I've never been to Lauderdale either. Yeah, I think, but actually the last time I went to Miami, I don't remember what year it was, 18, 19, but I actually went home a day early. It was, like you said, it was pretty poor. Plus I was working for Eddie, and the new stuff just passed us by. We didn't do any R&D. We didn't, like, our tabs. I couldn't sell our tabs to anybody because I didn't have electric indicators on, and we were just more West Coast guys. So we used to sell a ton. We used to display back there at that show. We used to sell a lot of stuff to those guys back there, but technology and stuff kind of just passed us by, so I didn't have a lot of stuff. But yeah, last time I went, I came home a day early. It's just like, I couldn't believe I was doing that, but there just wasn't much there. So still would like to get back there and check it out. But
for sure. Well, we appreciate you having us on, man. It was good catching up.
Thank you. I love having the studio in the background. That's very cool. And thanks for
convenient for this.
Yeah, I was wondering how technical. I'm like, I hope we can do this, but and I didn't have to drink a bunch of whiskey, so I'll be able to do something afterwards still.
Perfect. We'll get to work. It's still early there.
I know. All right, guys. Thanks a bunch.
All right.
I'll talk
to you
later.
Man. Thank you.
Take care.
Later.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Powerboat Talk. If you like what you've heard, please head over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review. For more Powerboat Talk, follow us on Facebook or Instagram, or visit our website at powerboattalk.com.